My life was a catalog. I'm an antiques dealer. A picker, to use the grubby term, but I like to think I'm a cut above. I don't just find junk, I find provenance. I sell stories, not just stuff. My shop in the city is a clean, curated, minimalist space where a single 19th century chair can command a 5-figure price tag. I'm a snob, and I'm very, very good at my job. My world is not this. This was a rundown, middle-of-nowhere farm auction in rural Pennsylvania. The online listing had been vague but tantalizing. Contents of 150-year-old barn and workshop to be sold as one lot. 10 a.m. sharp. One lot. The Holy Grail. The ultimate gamble. I pulled up in my pristine, black Audi, my leather boots crunching on the gravel. The auction was just a half-dozen pickup trucks and one cranky-looking auctioneer sitting on a tailgate. And him. He was my polar opposite. He was leaning against an old, beat-up flatbed truck, covered in a fine layer of sawdust. He was big, in a solid, built-like-a-workbench kind of way, with a scruffy beard and a faded flannel shirt. He was a local, a salvage guy, the kind of guy who'd take a priceless 18th-century hutch and slap a coat of chalk paint on it to sell on Etsy. He was, in short, my nemesis. He gave me a lazy, assessing, and slightly hostile look. "Lost City boy? I'm here for the auction, just like you," I said, adjusting my cuffs. My name was Daniel. I didn't offer it. The auctioneer, a man who looked like he'd been carved from a sour apple, stood up. "All right, that's everyone. I'm not spending all day on this. It's one lot, people. The whole barn as is where is. You buy it. You're responsible for clear out by sundown tomorrow. Let's start the bidding at $5,000. My hand went up. $5,000 from the city, the auctioneer said. "6, the flannel guy said, his voice a low rumble. 7, I snapped. 8. We went back and forth, the only two bidders, our voices cutting through the quiet morning air. We hit 20,000. I was sweating. This was my limit for a blind lot. 21, the flannel guy said, a lazy, challenging grin on his face. 22, I said, my voice tight. "All right, I'm bored," the auctioneer yelled. "This is taking too long. You two are the only ones here. Here's the deal, you both pay 10 grand cash right now. You both get a key. You two go in there, you split it, and you get it off my property. I don't care how. Take it or leave it." I just stared at him. A forced partnership? With this guy? It was insane. "Fine by me," flannel guy said, already pulling a thick wad of cash from his jeans. "I can play nice." I was trapped. If I walked away, he'd get it all for 10 grand. If I stayed, I had to share. "Fine." I spat my jaw tight. I went to my car and got my own cash box. 10 minutes later, we were standing in front of a massive, padlocked barn door. He was holding a key. I was holding the other. "Well, partner," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "After you." We unlocked it together. The massive doors groaned open on rusted hinges, cutting a bright, dusty shaft of sunlight into the darkness. We both just stopped. It was a goldmine. For both of us. My eyes went right to the row of pristine, 19th century steamer trunks, the delicate, hand-painted Victorian-era wardrobe, the stacks of leather-bound books. My heart was hammering. His eyes went to the piles of rough sawn, 150-year-old barnwood, the rusted industrial metal gears from some old piece of farm equipment, the massive, hand-hewn ceiling beams. We stood there for a full minute, in the dust motes, just cataloging our shared, newfound treasure. "Okay," I said finally, my voice all business. "The trunks are mine. The wardrobe is mine. The books. The queen and table. The rest of the scrap you can have." He just laughed. A loud, actual laugh. "The scrap? You mean the 1880s heart pine planks that are worth more per foot than your entire, ugly-ass car?" "No. I don't think so, partner." "That's fine," I said, pulling out my notebook. "We'll just appraise every item and divide the value." "We're not appraising," he said. "We're picking. This is a salvage pick, not an episode of Antiques Roadshow. I'll take the wood. You take the fussy, spindle-leg crap." "Easy." "Fussy, spindle-leg crap." I was offended. "That is a hand-turned, Chippendale-style side table. It's worth more than your entire truck." "So sell it," he said, shrugging. "I'm here for the bones. The good wood. You're here for the dusty old garbage. Let's just stay out of each other's way." "This is not going to work," I seethed. "It'll work fine if you stop talking and start hauling." He walked past me, toward a pile of gorgeous, rusted cast-iron tractor seats. "I'm taking these." We worked for hours in a state of hostile, dusty silence. I was carefully wrapping the delicate legs of a chair in bubble wrap. He was, with a kind of brute force grace, ripping 20-foot-long planks of wood from the walls with a crowbar. It was a symphony of desecration. The fight finally happened, as I knew it would. It was over a Hoosier cabinet. A perfect 1920s oak cabinet with the original frosted glass doors and flour sifter. It was a museum piece. I was trying to ease it out of the corner. He walked over. "Ooh, that's nice," he said. "It is," I said, my voice a warning. "And it's mine." "No, I mean the wood is nice. That quarter-sawn oak. I could make a hell of a bar top out of that." "I'll take it." I just stared at him. You're joking, right? You can't be serious. You would destroy this? You would take a perfectly preserved, 100-year-old piece of American history and turn it into a bar top?" "Yeah," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "It's got good bones. It's useful. Right now it's just old." "You're a barbarian," I whispered. "And you're a ghoul," he shot back. "You just want to put it in a clean, white room and let it die slowly. I want to give it a new life. What's so wrong with that?" We were standing face to face in the dusty, sun-drenched barn. The air between us was electric. "We are not compatible," I said. "No kidding," he said. "So, who gets the cabinet?" "I do." "No way. I'm stronger. We are not going to fist fight over a Hoosier cabinet." Before he could answer, we were interrupted by a sound from the hayloft above us. A high-pitched, angry meow. We both looked up. A small black and white cat was perched on a high, unstable-looking beam, looking down at us. "Great," he said. "A rat catcher." "It's a kitten," I said. And it was. It was tiny. It looked scared. It meowed again, a pathetic, desperate sound. And then it tried to jump to another beam. It missed. It didn't fall all the way. It scrambled, its tiny claws scratching, and it fell into the open metal-lined flour bin of the Hoosier cabinet we were fighting over. We both froze. We heard a frantic, terrified scratching from inside the metal bin. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," I said. "Well, go get it," he said. "Me? It's probably feral. It'll have my hand off. You're the one who likes old, useless things. Go on." I sighed. I carefully, slowly, reached my hand into the dark metal bin. I felt a tiny, warm, vibrating ball of fur. I also felt paper. "It's stuck on something," I said. I pulled my hand out. The kitten came with it, clinging to my arm, hissing. But it had also snagged a handful of old, loose papers. They were letters. A whole bundle of them, tied with a faded ribbon. They must have been hidden in the bin. They spilled out, all over the floor, a cloud of dry, brittle, century-old paper. "Oh God," I whispered. We had just stumbled on the real treasure. The provenance. The story. I dropped to my knees. He, to my surprise, dropped to his knees right next to me. The kitten, forgotten, bolted out the door. We were just there, on our hands and knees, in a pool of dusty sunlight, surrounded by fragile, scattered letters. He wasn't the barbarian. I wasn't the snob. We were just two people, looking at a piece of lost history. Don't touch them," I said, my voice shaking. "The oil from your hands, we need gloves." "I've got some in the truck," he whispered. He ran, his heavy boots thundering on the wood floor, and was back in 30 seconds. He handed me a pair of clean, new, cotton-lined work gloves. He put on a pair himself. Carefully, reverently, we started to gather them. His big, rough, carpenter's hands were surprisingly gentle. He'd pick one up, brush the dust off with the side of his hand, and hand it to me. We didn't speak. We were just a team, in a rhythm. Find, brush, handoff. Find, brush, handoff. I picked up the last one. It was a photograph. A tintype. A portrait of two young men, from the 1880s, I guessed. They were in their Sunday best. They weren't smiling. They were just looking at the camera. And one of them had his hand resting, ever so slightly, on the other one's shoulder. My breath caught. "What is it?" he asked, kneeling beside me. He was close. I could smell the sawdust and the faint, clean scent of his sweat. I held up the photo. "Look." He looked. He was quiet for a long time, just taking it in. "Oh," he said, his voice soft. "I get it. That's why he kept the cabinet." "Yeah," I whispered. "It's where they hid their letters." I was still holding the photo. I looked at it, at these two men who had lived and loved 150 years ago, in this very barn. I felt a wave of profound, academic, and deeply personal emotion. This was it. This was the story. I looked up, and he wasn't looking at the photo. He was looking at me. His face, which I had only ever seen as mocking or angry, was open and kind. He was watching me, and he was seeing the real me. The guy who cried over old photographs. "You're a piece of work, Daniel," he whispered. "You're a barbarian, Josh," I whispered back. I hadn't even realized I'd learned his name. He reached out, his gloved hand coming up to my face. I flinched, but he was just gentle. He used his thumb, the rough, cotton-gloved thumb, to wipe a streak of dust from my cheek. "You got a little 19th century on you," he said. "So do you." He didn't move his hand. He was still holding my face. We were still on our knees in the dirt. "So," he said, his voice a low, rough rumble. "Who gets the letters?" "We do," I said. And he smiled. A real, genuine, unguarded smile. And then he leaned in, right there in the dusty, sunlit barn, surrounded by 100 years of forgotten things. He kissed me. It was a clumsy, dusty, surprising kiss. His lips were chapped, and his beard was rough, and his glove was still on my face. It was completely illogical. It was a structural disaster. And it was, without question, the most real, solid, and perfectly preserved thing that had ever happened to me.